I was thinking about the song we were singing from Philippians 2, from Galatians chapter 5, got the wrong one there in my mind there, about the fruit of the Spirit. We happened to be with men in our church reading through a really good book by Gail Irwin called Spirit Style. And I recommend this book to you. It's not, I should say it's not in print now, but you can get it. If you go on to Amazon or to, just Google that. And if you don't remember that name, but get with me. But he talks about, we're happening to be reading right now about these gifts that God gives to the church, these wonderful things that we talked about. It's actually the nature of the Holy Spirit, but they come to us as gifts. And then he also goes through the gift listings and how this all reflects back to Christ. It's one of the best writings I've ever seen. It's just, it's rich. It will fill you with a lot of understanding on how you approach God with these wonderful things that he's given to us. So I encourage you to read that book. It is available. I have a copy, but we're not done yet. When I'm done, you can borrow mine if you want. I loan them out. I have you signed in blood because nobody ever turns them back in, and it's the only way I can get them back, and so it's working. So anyway, we're in chapter 20 of Proverbs. Now, if any of you felt like you got beat up last week or any of the last times, don't worry about it because we're going to hit the other people tonight because Solomon just hits us all. And it's of the Holy Spirit, and I know that, and so we're going to take it all in. He's going to cover a wide variety of things tonight. And the first one is alcohol. It talks about it in verse 20. Wine produces mockers. Alcohol leads to brawls. Those who are led astray by drink cannot be wise. It says a lot. There's probably a lot of things that are not being said there. But, he's saying, it's not going to take you down a good road. And I know that for a fact. People do foolish things when they get to drinking. You say, well, I drink and I haven't done anything foolish. Well, we watched you and you did. You just didn't know it. But we've seen a lot of breakups, family breakups and things over alcohol. It's just the nature of it. It destroys so many lives. But I think the end of that sentence probably says it all. If Proverbs is all about attaining the wisdom of the Lord, it says very clearly here, those led astray by drink cannot be wise. You're going to the antithesis. Now, everybody thinks they're cool when they're drinking, but when you're around somebody well, when they're drinking, you're thinking, you're a moron. I didn't realize you were that much of a moron because you think you're smarter than you are. There are scriptures that talk about that. Paul did, actually. He talked about it. He says something, 2 verses that almost are alike except for the ending of them. He tells the Corinthians, in 1 Corinthians 6, verse 12, you say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. And even though I'm allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. And that's unfortunately where it takes you. Bridges says, so mighty is the spell of drinking that the overcome slave consents to be mocked again and again. It becomes a lifestyle. Paul also said later on in that same book in chapter 10 of 1 Corinthians, verse 23, again, it sounds almost the same. You say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. You say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. It's not building up you, your family, your church. It's not building up anything. It's just the opposite of it. And it's wise to keep that in mind. Verse 2, the king's fury is like a lion's roar. To rouse his anger is to risk your life. I would interpret that today, since we don't have a king, no matter what they say about King's days. We don't have one. But the fact, I think it refers to government. Don't pick a fight with the law. If you're getting pulled over for a ticket, be nice. You say, well, I don't agree. Well, take it to court. You say, well, they won't let me take it. They won't let you do that. Well, then just be nice with the guy. Because if you're not a nice person, he's going to write all this stuff down, and that's going to go into court with you. Don't pick a fight with the government. Well, I hate where my taxes are going. Well, we all hate that. But even Somalis need our money, right? So we all hate that stuff. It's tax day, by the way, April 15th, and don't forget to send your taxes in to help support the Somalis. You say that sounds so racist. No, it's not. I'm just tired of being... If it was anybody ripping us off, I would be tired of that too. Did you see the new law that Democrats in our state are trying to pass? That you can't investigate fraud in the government? Did you see that? I can't remember the HB number, but Nick Shirley, they're calling it, it's not called that in the law, but that's what they're calling it, the Nick Shirley. And they, because of guys like him, they wanted to make it illegal for you to investigate to see if they're committing fraud. It just gets weird. Yeah, oh, well, I'm sure all the Democrats are probably planning on voting for it. It's so stupid. It kind of leads into, don't pick a fight with the government. Don't get into that. You're not going to win, and that's not the way we are handling things anyway. Be careful about that. Kind of the next verse kind of leads into that. Avoiding a fight is a mark of honor. Only fools insist on quarreling. So we're told also in the Word to give a soft answer. You know, as we're learning in this book I'm talking about, really taking another good hard look at, you know, how the Lord works in our life and the gentleness and things that he brings in our life. And that song convicts me because I believe, and I've always believed as being a Christian, I've always believed everything those two verses say from Galatians chapter 5. My problem has been me. I don't want to be gentle. I don't want to be kind. There's days that I don't want to be patient. Are you like that? It's mostly just me, probably. My old flesh doesn't think that way. But the Spirit of God calls for me to be that way, to have that soft word. Don't be starting arguments. A wise person, and not in the wrong way, he says, you know, this is not worth it. Now, we say that in frustration sometimes. It's just not worth it. You know, that's not what he's saying right here. What I'm saying, I'm thinking to myself, is this teenager is trying to pick a fight with me, or somebody at work or whatever. Somebody is just picking at me, and man, it's like it's bubbling up. You know what it is? So my response has been, you know what I'm talking about. I can tell by the look at your face. It's bubbling up. You just want to say something. Just let's all say it together. It's not worth it. Can we do that again? It's not worth it. Just learn to let it go. My dad was good at that. He was good. He was good at not saying anything. I look back, I think that's a great thing. I didn't think much of the time. It says here that any fool could start a fight. So don't be a fool. Don't be drawn in. Know when a fight is coming and try to steer clear of it. It's the best thing you can do. You say, but I'm right. Who in the world cares? The other guy doesn't care, that's for sure. So stay clear of it. But I need to give him a piece of my mind. Hold on to it. You'll need it when you get to be my age. So just hang on there a little bit, okay? Verse 4. Again, he does this one so many times, really, basically. He's going to do it a second time in this chapter. Those too lazy to plow in the right season have no food in the harvest. And I think it's really important for us to remember that we're not to be lazy. Solomon was not lazy, and he was not unintelligent either. As you read here, and you read in the Ecclesiastes and the Song of Solomon, he knew everything. He knew the bugs. He knew the dirt. He knew the galaxy. So not only had his wisdom caused him to go out and learn. He was a very busy, active person. I remember Chuck Missler saying years ago, you know, because he was a real brainiac. He worked for Ford Motor Company. It's one of the big execs for years. But he's a real brainiac kind of guy. And they said, well, how did you ever get to know all that stuff? He says, I have about 400 foot of shelving with books on it that I read. And I thought, 400 feet? Well, what does that amount to? So I went in and measured my bookshelves. You know, I got about 70 feet of bookshelves back there. I got about that much at home, maybe a little more. So let's just say we've got 150 feet, linear feet, of books. I've given away a lot. But then I look at my computer. It's got even more than that. I haven't read them all, obviously, you know, but it's got more than that. I don't have 400 feet of books that I have read. This guy was very active, very smart, and he was not lazy. And I think that's just really for us to know that, you know, some people will work really hard during the day and say, man, when I get home, I just want to kick down. I just want to turn on the TV. I don't even know what I watched last night or the night before. I just want to kick down and just zone out. Now, if you're that way, I'm not trying to put guilt on you. I know that feeling well. There are some days you got to come home and that's your pressure valve. Just, you know, if you watch the news, you'll get more pressure. Sit down, you know, watch Looney Tunes or something else that will calm you down a little bit. But you can't spend the next 7 hours watching TV and zoning out away from your family and life and everything like that. You know, you need to be consistent and diligent, because that's just another form of laziness. You need to have there's a time for that. There's a time to cool your jets, and then there's a time to get up, and maybe there's some projects that need to be done a little bit before the sun goes down around your house and things that you need to do. You say, well, I'll get to it on Saturday, but you never do, and that chews up your whole Saturday. Just don't be lazy. I think that he's trying to sell us. Just talk to God about that. Verse 5 kind of goes on. It says, through good advice lies deep within the heart, though it lies deep in the heart, a person with understanding will draw it out. It's interesting. Some folks know what is right, how to handle things, but sometimes it needs to be developed and drawn out, helping people to develop out. I remember when we used to have the youth thing that Dan had called Youth for Truth, and they would take a lot of mission trips. And I remember one of them, and they went to Australia, and they were there for 3 weeks. It was a long trip, and they got a lot done, and it was just really a blessing. But there were 2 guys on the trip that I have kept in touch with all these years, but 2 guys on the trip. They were young people, they were guys, and they were not raised in the best of situations. I knew their families, I knew their background, I knew dads were out there, drunks, and it was just a real problem. And so one of them, I remember specifically, they got ready to come back home, and everybody was packed because they had to get up real early to get a flight to begin the long journey back over here, and he wasn't packed. And so Dan would go back periodically as he was checking on all the kids. And he still wasn't packed. He finally got on about it. But it just came to realize that, well, he didn't really know how to pack all this stuff. He just didn't know how to do it. Dad had not taught him. And so, he took the time then from that time on to help develop this guy. And this guy got developed out. I'm sorry, I'm losing there I am. This guy got it together, though, and did wind up being, very organized, working, has a very good job through the government. I guess you don't have to be that good to work through the government. I don't know. Working through the government, has a family, has children, and he lives out of state now. I talk with him periodically. He gives me a call, but he's doing really well because Dan took time with him to help develop that out. I had another guy at our church, and they just had their 21st anniversary, he and his wife, but he was the same way. And same thing, but Dan took a lot of time with him to help develop him out. And you know what? He has his own contracting business today. He's doing good. So I think there's wisdom in developing people out. Sometimes they have the gift to where they could serve in the Sunday school or in some other part of the church, but they need to be developed out because they just don't know in life how to do a lot of basic things. And so I think that's kind of what this is alluding to. Verse 6 says, many will say that they're loyal friends, but who can find one who is truly reliable? I have a couple thoughts on that. So don't just say that you're a friend. It takes a lot. First of all, you've got to be friendly. You need to be more than that. It takes a lot more to be a friend to your husband or your wife or your people that you work with or people in your church. Actions are needed. One little statement that caught my ears so many years ago as a very young minister said that love is a verb. And it's exactly that. You say, I really love these people. Well, what do you do about that? You have a kumbaya morning time at the church. I love you and I love you, I love you. But what do you do to show that? What about when there's a crunch time? What about when something is needed in their life? Are you there to meet that need? Are you? If this thing falls up, are you there to come up and pick this thing up? Now, are you there to meet the need, whatever it is? So just continue to build a real friendship and all that entails. Sometimes that entails a good day. Some days are a little rougher to be a good friend. Don't just say that's you. Verse 7, the godly walk with integrity. Blessed are the children who follow them. Integrity is everything. It's Christ-like. It says in John 1, verse 47, as they approached Jesus, he said, now here, he's referring to Nathanael, here is a genuine son of Israel, a man of complete integrity, a man has in whom there is no guile, as you may have learned it that way. That means he's got integrity, that there's nothing that's not like that in his life. And our children are blessed when we parents have integrity. Our people are blessed when we elders and leaders and pastors have integrity in our lives consistently. If we're consistent, people will grow. If we're consistent with it, our kids will grow. Verse 8, when a king sits in judgment, he weighs all the evidence, distinguishing the bad from the good. A good leader seeks out the truth. As I said before, Pastor Chuck used to always say when people came to him about somebody else, he said, well, I think we haven't heard the whole story yet. And there's wisdom to that. Weigh out the evidence. Weigh out the evidence with your kids. Weigh out the evidence. If they've come asking for something, you say, well, they're always asking for money. Weigh it out. Is there a real need this time? Maybe you need to step it up this time. Or maybe this is not so much a need as a want. Or maybe there's a way that you could train them to maybe to have a better use of their finances or something. But weigh it all out. Verse 9 says, who can say I have cleansed my heart? I'm pure and free from sin. None. Okay. Know your heart. Start with the fact that Jeremiah said it this way: the human heart is the most deceitful above all things, desperately wicked. Who really knows how bad it is? You know, people get distracted by the craziest things. We all do. Whatever it is out there, it'll distract you. You know, I've talked with people over years, they see, this program or this movie or Fiji, and they want to have it. And so, they do what it takes to pack up their family and move to Fiji, at great expense. Whatever they had for equity here is gone in the move. And they get over there, and it's fun, for a little bit until they realize, I hate mosquitoes, And what kind of snake is that, and all these things. And it's so sticky and humid all the time. And after a while, they don't want to be in Fiji anymore. They want to be back home. And if they get back home, they come home limping financially because it was not a decision that was really made correctly. I have an uncle. In my mom's side of the family, the youngest of her siblings was my Uncle Doug. And he was only about 5 years older than me. Because we were the oldest grandchildren, so it just kind of worked that way. They had 7 kids and so on. But I remember he had 3 terms in tours in Vietnam and came back home, and then he was always building a car. He still does, all these classic cars. He's just, 37 Chevys, whatever it was. And he built a midget, he built it, with all the right stuff. He's a single guy, and he just put all of the money that he ever thought about having his life into this thing, put this thing up. Well, he got the wild hair to move to Australia. Sounded good, saw a movie or something, and said, that looks great. So he packs up and moves to Australia with all his kit and caboodle, and he has that midget shipped over there also. I can't even think about how much money, even back, this is probably over 50 years ago or more, how much it costs to do that. He gets over there, and he realizes after a while, I don't like Australia at all. It's not anything like the movies. Not at all. So he makes a decision to move back. Now, his midget hasn't shown up yet because it's lost somewhere. So he gets all the paperwork, and he winds up moving back home after several months. He comes back home. About a year later, it shows up. And then he has to go get it from Long Beach or wherever and come in with additional fees to it. That cost him a small fortune to make that misstep in his life. But you see, we're like that with things. I've got to have this. I've got to do that. I've got to go to Mount Rushmore this year. Well, maybe this isn't the year that you could afford to take your family or yourself or anything. You just have to really weigh out all of these things. Is that really the right thing to do or not? So, we get impure thoughts about that. That you say, well, that's nothing to do with lust. No, it's just missing the mark. The definition of sin is to miss the mark. That's exactly what the word means. Like David, when he was before God, we all know Psalms 139:24 says to God, point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life. Now, we're going to come back around in a minute and read the verse before that. So we need to be really stopping to take time with the Lord before we make decisions that can affect our whole families and other people, right? Yeah. Verse 10. Again, this is another thing that he hits so often. False weights and unequal measures. The Lord detests double standards of every kind. God doesn't like anybody cheating. The first thing is stolen when you cheat is your character. He doesn't have anything to do with it. He seeks the truth, and he wants to sift through everything like that. He points out that God hates it, and that it always affects, it always hurts others and ourselves, and it subverts the very commandment, which is, Jesus says in Matthew 22, verse 39, love your neighbor as yourself. If you're cheating, you are not loving them. You say, well, it's just the tax people. Yeah, what if that guy shows up? What if your tax guy just happens to show up? He happens to live in your town. He happens to show up in your church this Sunday. And you cheated. He knows it. You know it. And how is that going to sit? Not good. Verse 11. I got a guy. Well, no, maybe later. We'll see. Verse 11. How we act. Even children are known by the way that they act, whether their conduct is pure and whether it is right. How we act, our purity, our sense of right and wrong, they're not hard concepts to understand. They're just not so easy to do. Even children know the correct and the right things. Jesus was clear. Even they know, and he teaches that we have to become like them to even get saved as a little child. Little kids know better. When we get older and all the grayness of sin, as we mentioned the other day, I like the way that was put. I didn't come up with that. That's around us. We are raised in that, live in that all of our life in the muck and the grayness of sin around us. After a while, you know what? We lose a lot of our childlike innocence through it. And because of that, our sense of purity, what is right, has been messed up. You got to keep going back to the Lord for that. But he'll give it back. Verse 12. Ears to hear, eyes to see are both gifts from the Lord. Aren't you glad you can see things? Just got my cataract surgery. I tell you, life, I can see, you're better looking than I thought, people. I didn't know that. I can see you more clearly now. Ears to hear, isn't it great to be able to hear things, music, other things? We love these things, but they're precious gifts from the Lord. And what you hear, what you visibly take in, they're gifts not to be done, are taken in for granted or to be used for anything that would be evil. Careful about what you're listening to with those ears. Be careful about what you're watching, what you got your eyes on. It's a misuse of God's very gifting because these are gifts from the Lord. Right? Verse 13. Again, a theme he goes over again and again. He says, if you love sleep, you're going to end up in poverty. Keep your eyes open and there'll be plenty to eat. And laziness just takes away all your opportunities. Verse 14. The buyer haggles over the price, saying, it's worthless, then brags about getting a bargain. You know that feeling? Yeah. Oh, well, you wouldn't believe what I got this for. There's a problem there, is what he's trying to tell us, I think, about haggling. Any deal that hurts the other party is not a good deal. So often when I buy something or when I sell something, by the time I get done, I say, are you happy with the deal? I'll just ask them that because I know what it's like to be on the bad end of that. I think we've all been on that. I had a guitar for sale, and guitar cost I didn't pay it. It cost $900 new, and I have it up for sale for just under $400. The guy offered me $100 the other day. And then he had a Christian symbol right next to his name there. He did this on Facebook Marketplace. I felt like I didn't do it. I felt like zapping back saying, are you a Christian? And if he said yes, I'd say, why would you leave that kind of a testimony? Yeah. Because that's beyond. But I guess a little worse. I have been guilty too. I remember my brother and I, when we started our first church many years ago, gosh, that's a long time ago, we started, and there was a Bible bookstore dealer that we used to get, because we were giving out Bibles like crazy back in those days. So we went and we'd get them from him. He'd get us a bulk price, on it, which was really great. But we haggled him, and we just did it for fun. My brother had kind of a weird old streak that way, and I probably wasn't really. He was worse than me, but we went in just because we always joked with this guy and always had a great time. But he had things going on, and we didn't realize it in his life, and we haggled him too far, and he started crying. He said, just take them. And I thought, oh boy, what have I done? I mean, instantly the Holy Spirit said, look what you've done. And so, obviously we did not do that. But we made things right, and we learned a lesson. We were hurting a brother. We were taking all of his profit out, and he has to keep the doors open. He has to have a living, and I understand that so much better now. But we're not to be like that. Don't be like that. You don't, say, oh, I really got it. Look what I got. Oh, yeah, I got this from this guy. Well, maybe he was really hurting and had to sell it, and you just kind of just took away everything by just giving him the bare minimum that you could. Let's not be like that. Let's be open-handed givers. Don't be a taker. Be a giver. Jesus gave it all for us. So let's be giving to other people as the Lord puts that upon us. That's the right testimony. Again, what if that person shows up in your church next week? That you've haggled into a horrible situation. You've taken great advantage. You says, oh boy, I told him it was worthless, but look what I got here. And he shows up, and he knew that all along. He just had to sell it. He had to get some money. And he shows up in church. How do you feel? I feel great. Look what I got. No, that's not the right answer we were looking for. Verse 15. Wise words are more valuable than much gold and many rubies. I love it that the Lord gives a word from the Lord, either through the word or just gives a word. And I love that. And I like the righteous counsel that comes with it. It changes lives. You give a word to somebody that the Lord has told you to, or you share the word with somebody, it can just change. It does. It's changed my life. Many times people have done this. It says in Proverbs 18:21, we read this a few weeks ago, the tongue can bring life or death. Those who love to talk will reap the consequences. The tongue can be a great thing, and it can also be a vile thing, as we'll learn here in just a moment. Verse 16, he's hit this once before. He says, Get security from someone who guarantees a stranger's debt. Get a deposit if he does it for foreigners. Take advantage. If that guy's stupid enough to give a down payment to somebody as a loan to go do something, yeah, go find that guy and get a loan from him. He's not serious. He's being sarcastic because he's already told you not to do that. He's like, don't let there be a lender or a borrower. Solomon has already said that. So what's he saying here? He's poking at people. Don't be stupid. Don't be foolish with your finances, especially those who are going to loan anything out. Don't do that. Verse 17 talks about cheating. Stolen bread tastes sweet, but it turns to gravel in the mouth. Whatever you decide to cheat on, steal on, whether it's the IRS or your mate or anything else, it might seem easy. Maybe you can log in extra hours at work and they won't know, and the time clock shows that you worked more than you did. Whatever the case may be, the consequences are bitter. But I told you at the beginning, the first damage is to your own character. And you say, well, okay, I understand that, but years ago, I cheated on my husband and I cheated on my wife, and but we've talked it through and she's forgiven me. Okay, well, about the Lord. Well, I've prayed a lot. He's forgiven me too. Okay, great. Have you forgiven yourself yet? Because that takes decades sometimes. There's been a piece of you that has to get trust back. And then people who do that, they say, well, I don't understand. A month later, why don't you trust me? I'm going to trust you. You messed up a marriage we had for years, and you want me to turn around and trust you now? Trust takes time. It just does. There's no way you can shortcut it either. It's just the way it is. Okay, verse 18. Plans succeed through good counsel. Don't go to war without wise advice. Whether it's in political things or personal things or church or with other Christians, seek godly, mature counsel when there's a question at all. Proverbs 11:14 told us, without wise leadership, a nation falls. There's safety in having many advisors. I see our president making a lot of brilliant moves. He's not making those alone. He's got a great administration, a great adjutant administration as well. His guys, neither is Pete Hegseth. Neither is Raising Cane. Those guys are not making these decisions alone. There are really a lot of smart people working in these things. I love that. And so it tells us that. And in the New Testament, it says that you're to seek out elders for whenever there's if there's something that is not right in the church, or even if you need prayer, get the elders together to have those guys anoint you with oil and pray the prayer of faith over you. And that's where we're to seek out elders for that. In the Old Testament, at the gates of every city, there would be elders at the gate. And if you had a problem, you just couldn't figure out between the two of you, you go there. We read about this in the book of Ruth. You go there, and those guys will help you figure the whole thing out. That's what they're there for. There's wisdom. Solomon's son, Rehoboam, will be the next king. Now, the kingdom will split. And Jeroboam will take the north. But Rehoboam is kind of, unfortunately, a worthless young guy. And so as he gets ready to set up the people, he set up shop after Dad's dead. The people were so tired of the taxes because that kingdom had expanded to its zenith. They had built so much, but it cost these people a lot to do that. Every building that went up, all the horses, all the chariots, all the expansions, all the extra military, everything cost them. They were just weighted down. They thought, oh, man, finally we're going to get a relief. And so the elders of the wiser council guys come to Rehoboam, and he says, what should I do? And he give him good counsel by giving people a break for a while. Let's just give them a break. They have been taxed into oblivion. They have been taxed. Probably even the Somalis got part of their money. They are just tired. Then he says, okay, I'll think about that. And then he goes and talks with his young friends for advice. And they say, oh, no, we got a good thing going here. We need to tax them even more. And so he takes that advice and goes to the people, and he tells them that you thought my dad would tax you. His leg is like my thumb. I'm going to really tax you into oblivion. Of course, nobody respected him, and that was pretty much killed we don't have anything successful to say about Rehoboam because he did not listen to the wise advice of those who were older than him. Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa would not have survived had it been not for a few older men and women. Pastor Chuck had Romaine that helped him start that. There were a few other guys. As you watched the movie, there were a few of the older guys that stayed and that were there. But there were so many of the young ones coming in. They were coming in so fast, getting saved so fast. God was doing a massive reviving. But if it had not been for that skeleton crew of the older guys, they wouldn't have made it. Because they were dying right and left because they weren't getting the counsel. They were going back to drugs, all kinds of things. they need a maturity to even get to where they were. So it's something to remembering. If you need something, you need to speak out and get some help from guys, not from just anybody, but from guys who are mature in the Lord. They don't have to be elders in the church, just guys who are mature in the Lord, Now, verse 19, I really want to get through this chapter tonight. Gossip goes around telling secrets, so don't hang around with chatterers. Stay away from gossip and gossips. Just stay away from people like that. The Bible talks a lot about it. Proverbs 16:28 said, a troublemaker plants seeds of strife. Gossip separates the best of friends. Gossip has nothing good to it. Proverbs 26:20 will tell us fire goes without wood and quarrels disappear. But when gossip stops, fire goes out without wood and quarrels disappear when gossip stops. People stop fighting. Paul tells the Ephesians 4:29, don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. He also tells the Galatians in 5:15, but if you are always biting and devouring one another, watch out, beware of destroying one another. That's what gossip will do. You figure out what you want to do with your life. If you want to be profitable to the Lord, then don't be a gossip. You don't want to hear things about, if in earshot, if they're talking about you, if they start talking about you, hear your name, you kind of go up close to the door edge where they can't see you. You want to listen in. You don't want to be hearing things that some people say, because people are just bitter and mean, and it will not do anything to edify the Lord. Verse 20 goes on and says, if you insult your father or your mother, your light will be snuffed out into total darkness. God has no place for people who will not respect their parents. Verse 21, there's a lot of reasons not to get your inheritance early. Take a look at this, verse 21. An inheritance obtained too early in life is not a blessing in the end. Why? Well, for several reasons. First of all, it robs the parents. As we have a lot of people in here who are my age or approaching that. And so, if you've got kids and if you own anything at all, they're looking it over. My wife has a ring from her mom that her Donna's stepfather had made for her years. It's nice, really nice diamond ring. My daughter has lusted greatly over that ring. And often when she comes down and says, Mom, can I just try that on? And she's got intentions and plans. And, honey, this is yours. I want you to know this ring is yours. When I'm dead, you will pry it off of my cold, dead finger. At this age, our house is paid off. And so there's money there. Our other money is we have a limited amount of money that is there to get us through. So if something happens to one of us, there's some money. There's enough money that, we're not going to go out. It won't be like the fellowship of the Christians and the Jews. It will be, internationally, we should have enough money to survive. Okay, well, that's the idea. The inheritance will really come out of our house at that point. But as I often point out to my kids, but I'm feeling really good. So, just in case you're thinking about that, because otherwise I'd have to sell my house to meet that. One of them were the prodigal and said, I want my inheritance now. And I felt I needed to do that for some reason. Well, I would either have to sell or do a reverse mortgage to make that happen. That's the only way that it would happen. So it's made for me at this point, and for you at this point. Secondly, unearned wealth often leads to laziness. People who get it early, they just kick back. They shut down. They don't want to work anymore. They just kind of want to get an RV and travel the United States, I guess. Third, it's really designed for their later life. It has a plan and a purpose in that. Your needs are going to be met by this. Talking to my children and your children, their needs will be met somewhat by whatever you leave them at that point. And the design in the Bible was concerning inheritance, how we even know much about it, is that however many kids there were, the inheritance would go to them, but 2 portions of the inheritance would go to the oldest son. And the purpose of that is that if mom or dad, and usually the dad died first, somebody would be able to take care of mom. You would probably take her in, and you would have money for her needs and her expenses, and that would be it. Now, if that wasn't the case, if both mom and dad died, then he would still get the second, the double portion on his inheritance, so that if something came up with the siblings or in the family that needed help, he would have somewhat to help out with that. That's the design of inheritance. So keeping inheritance's design is that there would be money for those things. I would say one more thing about that. My kids may not all like this, I don't know, but I don't want every cent of it to go to my kids. there are some ministries, including this one here, that I would want something to go to. And whatever that amount, we haven't determined that, but I want the work of, the work of the ministry of God is a lot more important than one of my kids getting a sailboat, I think you got to put things into perspective at some point, Okay, let's see. So, verse 22, don't say I will get even for this wrong. Wait for the Lord to handle the matter. Why? Because the Bible says many times, God, the vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. We would like to just have God thump somebody sometimes, and just go ahead and zap them down. Can you just get rid of that person? We've all said that about people. People were saying that about Hitler. Let's get real about it. If Hitler were alive today, what about, the Ayatollah Khomeini? Well, I was rooting when he died. What about when Soleimani died? I was it. When Saddam Hussein, yeah, we got him. Because these are evil people who did a lot of evil things. They caused a lot of death. People were saying that same thing about a guy named Saul in the New Testament. And instead, God saved him. Later on, he gets his name changed to Paul, uses his Roman name. But, God had a better plan in that case. So just leave it to the Lord's design on all that stuff. Verse 23, the Lord detests double standards. Again, he's talking about uneven scales. He's not pleased with dishonest scales. It's a repeated theme that he has. He simply wants you to know that God says, I don't want anything that is dishonest. He's not into duplicity. He's not into hypocrisy. The Bible is very clear that he is into truth. And Jesus made it very clear also when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through me. So God operates in truth. You say, well, I kind of want to do this, but I don't know if God's really into it, so I'm going to fudge a little bit on this. You don't have God at work in it because you're not going with truth. Stay with truth. Tell the truth. You say, but it'll hurt me. She'll hurt me if I tell her the truth. Yeah, take your hit, get it over with. Verse 24, the Lord directs our steps, so why try to understand everything along the way? I've talked with you about this before. It's absolutely true that we are designed to be active, to seek, to plan. But just remember that you may make your plan and start walking. The Lord might change the path. He has that opportunity. Now, he's not going to change anything if you're just a lazy goat not doing anything, but he will make sure that your path gets you to the right place. Jesus said in Matthew 6:34, so don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today. Isn't it the truth? So quit worrying about what might happen tomorrow. Today, just get through today is what he's saying. James, the half-brother of Jesus, will say later on in chapter 4, verse 13, now look here. You who say today or tomorrow we are going to a certain town and will stay there a year and we will do business there and we'll make a profit, how do you know your life will be like, what it will be like tomorrow? Your life is like a morning fog. It's here a little while and then it's gone. What you ought to say, if the Lord wants us to, we will live and do this or that. Yeah, here's my plan. If it works out, great. But here's my plan. I'd like to do it. But if it's the Lord's will, if it's the Lord's directing. Verse 25, a lot of people have misquoted and misused. Verse 25 says, don't trap yourself by making a rash promise to God, but only later counting the cost. Yes, you ought to make a vow to God if God so moves upon you. You may be greatly moved. Every time I see those commercials with Tim Tebow, I'm not even going to make it quite through this chapter, am I? With Tim Tebow and the kids are getting trafficked, I get really moved. And some people are going to get moved by that ministry, and God's going to stir something up inside of them and say, I'm going to help. And they're either going to help financially or they're going to help in other ways to help make sure kids get out of that trafficking situation. And so they might say, God, if you'll allow me to, I tell you right now, I will start putting aside, I will start giving on a weekly or monthly basis. God, I will go do this that they're talking about. I so believe this is something you want me to do that, God, as long as you allow, I vow I will do this. I vow I will send them $100 a month. I know it's going to be hard for me, God, but I'm going to do it. If you're firm about it, do it. But don't count your cost before you do it. Don't be afraid to make a vow. Just count your cost ahead of time, is what he's saying. Don't be afraid to make a vow. Just make it right. Okay, am I as far as I'm going to go? Probably. Where did I leave off here? I'm going to at least leave it right there. We'll pick that part up next week because I don't want to rush it. I get prepared for about 2 chapters every Wednesday night. I never get there. I hardly, if I'm lucky, get through one. But I'm going to get through every part of it. I don't want us to miss any of it. Is that okay? Amen. All right. So, if the Lord comes back before we finish Proverbs, we'll pick this back up in heaven. Right? Father, we're grateful to be here tonight. Lord, these Proverbs, they challenge us. Sometimes they push us out of our comfort zone, Lord, and they sometimes you, Holy Spirit, you who wrote the Word of God through these men, you poke at us. And you say, hey, you need to listen to this verse. Cliff, you need to listen up here. You say you believe this, but this is my challenge about it right here. And Lord, you call us back to take a good examination, because sometimes our hearts are, as Jeremiah said, deceitful, and we kind of get pulled down a path that we never really intended to go on. And this takes us back to reality, how we deal with our kids, how we deal with our finances, how we deal with honesty and integrity, how we deal with vows, how we deal with all these things. You challenge us to take a good, hard look at what we are calling our faith. As we learned last Sunday, you love to brag about us out of earshot. You love to brag about us. Lord, help us to live that life like Job, that gives you something to brag about. We ask, Lord, speak to us in that way.